You probably know this disease by the name of a famous baseball legend, but behind that name is a really intense story about a communication breakdown, almost like a civil war happening inside the body's own nervous system. We're going to demystify amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or as most of us know it, ALS.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure you've heard the name, Lou Gehrig's disease. But what's actually going on inside the body? What is failing? Answering that question takes us deep inside the nervous system's chain of command.
Okay, so here's the formal definition. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease, but the words you really need to focus on are motor neurons. These are the critical cells that are basically the wiring between your brain and your muscles. In ALS, they start to degenerate, and that connection just frays, which leads to weakness and over time paralysis. All right, to really get a handle on ALS, we first have to understand how your body sends signals to make you move. And the best way to think about it is like a military command structure, where orders always come from the top and move down the line.
So let's call this our command and control network. This network is what turns your thought, like, I want to pick up that coffee cup, into a real action. Your brain is the headquarters, and it sends its orders down two very distinct but totally connected pathways to make that action happen.
And here are those two pathways. First, you have the upper motor neurons, the UMNs. Think of these as the generals up in the brain's motor cortex. They're at HQ, and they issue the main commands. Then you've got the lower motor neurons, or LMNs. These guys are the field officers stationed in the brainstem and spinal cord. Their job is to get those orders from the generals and deliver them directly to the troops on the ground, your muscles.
Now, what makes ALS so uniquely devastating is that it doesn't just attack one part of this chain. It wages a war on both fronts at the exact same time, which, as you can imagine, creates absolute chaos in the body's communication system. So when the generals, those upper motor neurons, are attacked, the signals they send down the line get all messed up and erratic. And funny enough, this doesn't cause weakness at first. It causes stiffness and muscle tightness, which is called spasticity. It also leads to hyperreflexia, which means your reflexes go haywire. A simple knee jerk becomes this huge exaggerated kick. The body is essentially overreacting to everything. But then, when the field officers, the lower motor neurons, are under attack, you see a completely different set of problems. Now, the muscles just aren't getting any orders. This leads to that profound weakness and muscle wasting we associate with the disease. You also get fasciculations. Those are the little twitches you can see under the skin, and your reflexes become super weak or just disappear altogether.
And this is the absolute crucial point. In ALS, the body's getting hit with both sets of these conflicting signals at the same time. The dying generals are telling the muscles to be stiff and overreactive, while the dying field officers aren't delivering any messages at all, resulting in weakness. It's a true neurological civil war. Okay, so let's zoom in, way in. We've seen the breakdown in the command chain, but what's actually causing these neurons to fail in the first place? Well, it turns out there are a few different saboteurs at work on the cellular level.
Researchers have identified at least 4 of these key saboteurs, these mechanisms of failure. And it's really like a domino effect. It starts with a toxic chemical messenger, which leads to corrosive stress, which then causes a bunch of cellular junk to pile up, and it all ends with a total power failure in the cell.
Saboteur number 1 is called glutamate excitotoxicity. Now, glutamate is a perfectly normal chemical messenger in your brain. But in ALS, way too much of it starts hanging around. It's like it's constantly screaming at the neurons, overexciting them to the point where they get injured and eventually just give up and die. Second, we have oxidative stress. The best way to think about this is like cellular rust. In some ALS cases, a mutation in a gene known as SOD1 means the cell can't clean up these damaging little molecules called free radicals. So this rust just builds up and eats away at the delicate machinery inside the neuron. Our third saboteur is protein aggregation. Proteins are supposed to be the little machines that do all the work in the cell. But in ALS, important proteins like TDP43 start to misfold and clump together into useless aggregates. Imagine trying to run a factory when there's just junk piling up everywhere, gumming up all the works. That's what's happening here. And finally, number 4 is mitochondrial dysfunction. You might remember from biology class that mitochondria are the power plants of our cells. Well, in ALS, these power plants start to fail. This creates a massive energy crisis inside the neuron, which just leads to even more damage and ultimately its death. So, with the command chain being attacked from both ends and the cells being sabotaged from the inside out, what does this actually look like for the person going through it?
Let's zoom back out and look at how the disease progresses over time.
You know, the disease often starts pretty subtly, maybe some weakness in one hand or speech that starts to get a little slurred, things you might even brush off. But as more and more of those motor neurons are lost, it inevitably progresses to severe paralysis. The final stage is typically respiratory failure, because the muscles that control our breathing eventually become too weak to do their job.
But here's the thing, and this is perhaps the cruelest part of ALS. It's what the disease spares. This is a precision attack on motor neurons only. That means your ability to feel touch, pain, and temperature, totally intact. Eye movements are also one of the last things to go, which is why eye tracking computers can be such a vital communication tool. And, in most cases, the mind itself. A person's consciousness, their thoughts, their personality remains completely sharp, trapped inside a body that's failing.
Which brings us all the way back to this one powerful sentence. After everything we've just gone through, it really hits different, doesn't it? It tells the whole story. A progressive disease targeting both command chains, the UMNs and the LMNs, that results in this devastating loss of muscle control. And that's the profound tragedy of ALS, isn't it? This widening gap between the mind and the body. The command center is still fully there, fully operational, but the lines of communication are being systematically severed. Understanding this broken chain of command, it's more than just a scientific puzzle. It's the key to one day, hopefully, reconnecting thousands of brilliant minds to the world around them.